Telling you, bro. What's been happening, bro?
Not too much.
Still hitting the more Peggy-O's?
Hey everybody, Shane Theriot here. How's everybody doing? I'm doing good, thanks for asking. Out here in sunny Southern California. You're listening to a track from my record called Dirty Power. That's the title track, Dirty Power. All right, couple of announcements before we get to today's special guest. T-shirts, Riff Raff T-shirts. You asked for them, you got them. They're up on my website, shanetheriot.com. If you go to the store, you'll see merchandise, and then the T-shirts are conveniently located there. There's about 3 or 4 new, you can get all kinds of colors, and there's a couple of new designs. They're really great. I had a lot of people order them so far. I apologize if you order like a 2XL or 3XL. Those take longer. It's harder to source those right now. I guess the coronavirus is to blame for even triple XL t-shirts. I don't know why. Also, consider signing up on my website. It's free. I also have a little extra membership if you like. I share little lessons and clips from backstage and blah, blah, blah. If you get a chance, I would appreciate you go to iTunes. Give me a like. Comment would be better. A good comment. And nothing else, enjoy the conversation today with special guest KK Downing. Let's get to it. Thank you. Right, my guest today is Mr. KK Downing, one of the co-founders and original guitar player for arguably one of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time. Not arguably, they are one of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time, Judas Priest. But also KK's new project, KK's Priest, a band which continues his legacy. You're listening to a tune right now called Return of the Sentinel, which is a nod to the original Sentinel, which I believe is on the Defenders of the Faith record. I could be mistaken, but Screaming for Vengeance and Defenders of the Faith are 2 of my faves, and this new record continues in that line. Really heavy. So, and also, real quick, you might want to check out KK's book, Heavy Duty Days and Nights and Judas Priest. I read that before we did this interview and really recommend it. Here we go, without further ado. The one and only KK Downing. New record is called Sermons of the Sinner, KK's Priest.
I understand you're a fellow guitar player, Shane.
That's right. Honored to talk to you, KK. I've been a fan for a long time.
Yeah.
Welcome you to Riff Raff. I know I have a lot of guitar players that, maybe we'll be a little more guitar centric in this interview because there's a lot of things I never knew about you guitar wise. So maybe we could answer a few things.
Yeah.
And And of course, I want to talk
sure.
about KK's Priest for sure. But congratulations on your record. I know it just came out, and I think last week, right? Finally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Finally.
So congrats on that.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah, I mean, as a guitar player, I don't think you ever really got your due. I think some of that is probably because, you were in a guitar duo with Glenn Tipton. And I think probably the time, the decades of the 70s, 80s, it was such a guitar centric thing. You had Eddie Van Halen, these people, and I think you were kind of a package. So maybe you didn't get your due, but I have a lot of people that, a lot of listeners that, myself included, are big fans.
I definitely should have done more, because obviously, I had the capabilities to do it. But Glenn seemed to just somehow, it can happen in bands, it can just happen. And I just kind of missed it along the way, really, But, maybe I was always expecting Glenn just to say, well, but the longer solo, because we used to divide the solos up at the end of the record. Okay, we're near the end of the recording, you do the solo on this song, I'll do the solo.
I was curious how that happened. Yeah.
I always ended up with the shorter solos, and I always ended up with the solos that were more difficult to solo over, because they weren't like your standards, E, C, and D or something, you know what I mean? Or G, C, and E. I would get the ones like the song in Sinner where it was just E and D. So I'm working with two notes. Do you know what I mean? I'm working with two notes, I've got the minor key of E and I've got the seventh. So I've got the root note and the seventh to work with. So I need to solo over that. But and I was aware of that at the time, but the thing is, I'm such a guy that's up for a challenge, I was a guy, I'm up for a musical challenge. I've got to entertain people, and I've got this to play over, And so I kind of liked that challenge, even to the point where I thought, right, I'm going to play this live, and I'm just going to play an improvised solo, and I did that in the studio as well. And so I kind of liked these challenges, but I kind of got the more difficult songs, the more difficult songs to solo over.
Well, in your book, I know you're a big Hendrix fan. You said you got to see Hendrix like 4 or 5 times, and it's really a great part of your book. But I'm curious because you said you made a conscious attempt to, you didn't want to go down the blue. I'm talking strictly as your formative years as a guitar player. You didn't want to go strictly, everybody was blues. And who else were you listening to? And did you have how did you learn? Because you don't really talk about that. I never heard, did you have any, there was no tablature, there was no YouTube in those days. I mean, were you just listening to records or?
Yeah, it was insane, really. It was insane when I was young trying to do this, because in fact, it wasn't until just a few years ago now, I heard Robert, because Robert, he actually lives not too far from me and always has done. But I heard him on a local radio station, and he mentioned it then. He said, back in the old days, we didn't have anything to record on when we were writing songs. We just used to have to play it that many times and just hope somebody would remember it the next day. And that's what happened.
That's what happened.
That's exactly what happened. I'm thinking, and I'd forgotten all about that.
No answer machine. You ever call your own answer machine?
We didn't have anything to record on. We just had to remember it. We had to remember it, make sure we played it enough times to remember how the riff went the next day.
What a concept. What a concept that was.
We didn't have any of those things. That was kind of insane. But like say, I grew up in the 60s, and I was asked to join a pop band, which I wanted to join because to try and make some money, I was only about 17, something like that. And they would give me sheet music to learn the songs,
right.
The pop songs. But I had a record a turntable, and obviously you just put the LP on, you keep playing the record, you know, and trying to learn it. But then I would obviously refer to the sheet music as well, as best as I could. I was slow. I wasn't a prolific reader, but I did that quite a bit. And then later on, I used some sheet music, trying to learn some songs that I wanted to learn, you know, and it was obscure. It was like my girlfriend had this Leonard Cohen album, you know, and it was back in the 60s. And I was interested. I was interested to learn some of these songs, which I did. In fact, I learned them all from the sheet music. The one that's got like Suzanne on and all of that. Just a minute, I can't remember the other titles. But I was interested in his right-hand finger picking technique, Leonard Cohen. And I was really glad that I did that, because I actually I kept that with me all my life, you know, the different right-hand finger picking techniques from that album.
Wow, that's really interesting. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, so I did. I learned all of those. And so, like say, I don't have a guitar here, but, you know, I was kind of interested in the different combinations that he was using, you know, more so than the chord structures, you know. And so I've kept that with me, and that's held me in good stead through life, to be honest, you know. So I did that, and then, you know, and then at some point I just essentially played by ear. But what I did, because of getting into, you know, I was kind of swimming, because I didn't want to be a blues player, you know what I mean? I liked the blues, but I knew that there was a style of music around that hadn't been invented yet. That's the truth of it. Because in like 1965, I heard the Kinks play "You Really Got Me," and I liked it, and I thought, why do I like this song? This is a pop band. They're in the charts all the. But I liked that song. I liked the Troggs, "You Really Got Me." Jimi Hendrix straight away with "Purple Haze," "Foxy Lady." These riff-orientated songs really got to me, you know, and even like Wild Thing. Why did I like the Troggs? Because I like Wild Thing, you know, and then later these artists, these heavy metal artists, you know, like I saw in 1978, I saw Van Halen support Black Sabbath in Birmingham. And they played "You Really Got Me," you know, and I'm thinking, that's why I like this song back in 1965, because this is a rock, hard rock, heavy rock, or heavy metal, or somewhere in between, you know, but I had that. So I wanted to hear more of this music in the 60s when I was a teenager. So the only way to do it was to create it myself. And straight away, I sat down with Alan Atkins and we wrote songs, you know, which became, you know, "Victim of Changes" and all of these songs, "Winter" and "Cheater" and "Never Satisfied" and "Run of the Mill" and "Dream a Deceiver" and all of these songs, you know. And I have recordings of us playing these songs as a four-piece, you know. And then when Rob joined, we played them. We did a lot of shows, you know. But we never had any recordings. But I've got one record. But there's a few bits around. But you see, and then when people used to book us as a band, nobody could say what style of music we played. So they used to call us a progressive blues band.
Yeah.
You know, tonight, Judas Priest, progressive blues band. I'm going, okay. Because we didn't even have rock bands back then, you know. As a point in the 60s, we had rock and roll, but we didn't want to be rock and roll. That was Bill Haley and Elvis.
Yeah.
Like that, do you know what I mean? But when 1970 came, we had rock bands like Led Zeppelin, you're a rock band. Deep Purple, now you're a rock band, you know. And then we got labeled as a rock band, then a hard rock band, then a heavy metal, and then a heavy rock band, and then a heavy metal. So this evolution, this journey that I was on, was coming good all the time, really. It was getting there, you know.
Yeah.
Creating this music that didn't really have its own identity or label. In fact, people were so unsure about what we were doing. It kept changing, didn't it? You know, because one minute we're a hard rock band. No, Judas Priest, you're a heavy rock band. No.
Well, it's always been heavy. And you know, I don't know, I'm sure you've seen it, but what is it, the Reading Festival 1975 is on YouTube, some 8mm clip. And it's just amazing to watch that and hear it. I mean, there's nobody that heavy back then. I mean, Sabbath, you know, but that's it. And to see you're both playing SGs too, which was amazing.
And back then, you see, what happened was most of the progressive blues bands usually wore denim, you know, a lot of the times, a lot of bands. And they were great. We had so many great bands, didn't we? You know, from, you know, Rory Gallagher, Free, you know, Bloodwind Pig, Jethro Tull. I mean, it went on and on and on, the list of the bands, you know, Savoy Brown, and, you know, it went on. It was relentless, and they were all great, wonderful artists. But there was people like me and other people around the world, probably of a similar age, we had a different idea. And so when I first heard Black Sabbath, I went, fuck, great. Thanks for that. I'm so happy. It wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but at least there's other bands, you know.
Right.
At least there's other guys that have got a similar kind of thing in their mind. And there must have been other people, you know, around the world, probably Frank Marino and other people, you know, had a different thing going on, which was good. And so that encouraged me really to get on to, because you've got to have great encouragement to persevere and spend your whole life creating something, and you don't know if people, because it's such an unknown entity,
right,
whether it's actually going to be a saleable item, you know, or whether people are just going to flush it down the toilet. So you carry on and you carry on and you carry on. But
well, that's one of the things I always admired about Priest. I mean, with Stained Class was what, 78, 79, and you guys never, what was going on at that time, punk and disco. I mean, you never wavered and never changed throughout genres. I mean, Nirvana and grunge, and you still were metal. That's what I always loved about Priest, and what you're doing now. It's the same. It's just you by yourself, you know.
But as a musician, the only thing I know is that I really adhered. I didn't adhere myself to the minor and major pentatonic, because that's the formula that blues players, you know, will, you know, it should go to. So I didn't go there. I went straight to the natural minor scale, you know. That was it, because that incorporates those scales anyway, but I've got the extra notes to play with.
Sure.
So kind of that's what I always did, you know. And then, you know, playing by ear, you go to other scales as well, you know, even chromatic, you know, obviously diminished, and you go into a few other territories as well. You've naturally got pentatonic stuff in there as well, because you naturally go there. But I was kind of, everything to me was kind of, and still now I'm very, very much very much so. I like to obviously intertwine and integrate different scales now, because that's a load of fun now. You know, since the 80s, I entered into that. I'm thinking I need to sharpen the tools up a little bit here, you know, and start to get into harmonic minor and whole tone, half tone, and, you know, the Phrygian and all the modes, and learn, you know. I'm always curious as to why modes are so complicated to so many. If I give a tutorial one day, obviously, the modes is a scale within a scale, you know.
It's the same notes. It's just, starting on different notes.
You just start and finish on a different one.
Yeah.
Why is it so complicated?
It's just the context of the actual mode. If you Yeah, they're like, I look at them like flavors or colors, I guess, you know. But
it's even, well, I mean, without getting too complicated, but even like a double harmonic major scale, you know, you still get modes within that scale. You just start on the different notes, so maybe I'll just do something at some point.
That would be great, yeah.
But
KK Downing, that would be, I'd buy it.
but you know, why do, you know, because I grew up in the early 70s, obviously. I mean, that album Deep Purple in Rock was a great album, but I was a big very, very early Scorpions and very early UFO fan, you know, because I thought that, you know, obviously very good guitar players, and but I simply liked what they were doing song-wise, really, you know, and so I was a big fan there, and I actually, with those bands, I actually heard more, you know, comprehensively movements within the Aeolian scale than I did, you know, just the basic pentatonic.
I thought maybe we could talk about how you came up with some of the riffs on Sermons of the Sinner. I mean, your approach to songwriting. I'm interested in that because I know maybe back in the Priest days when the budgets facilitated, you know, you guys camping out in the studio and writing more in the studio as opposed to now where everything's more internet based. I mean, how did you approach writing some of these riffs?
Yeah, I think I just went, Shane, you know, I just sat down Christmas, it was virtually Christmas Day on 2019, you know, and, you know, and just shut myself away. I live on my own, don't have family, just my mom and a couple of sisters, two sisters. Mm-hmm. And I thought that I'll just sit down and put an album together, and I just went on to autopilot. You know, for somebody like me, after all of these years in the business, for me to just go on to autopilot wasn't really a difficult thing to do. I mean, I did have the help, obviously, as guitar players. We always carry now, obviously, with computers, a catalogue of ideas. A lot of stuff's been discarded, thrown out. Your bandmates didn't like it, you know, or whatever, but maybe you always thought it was a decent idea, you know. But so I took a couple of things from there, you know, but not much really, because I just came up essentially with song titles, working titles, and a sentiment to go with that title, you know, which enabled me to put, you know, some lyrical ideas, right, you know, down. And also, if I do like vocal melodies, I tend to go with the first ones that I come up with, which is probably going to be the most kind of obvious and commercial ones, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So sure. I often use that. If I come up with a melody line, I don't tend to milk it and work it too much to make it more intricate or fancy or anything. I tend to just go with it if it delivers up what you want it to. And also, to be honest, between, you know, obviously you're a musician as well. I didn't want to stress myself out trying to come up with musical ideas, you know, for the vocal parts, musical ideas that were too kind of, not complicated, but clever, or, do you know what I mean, musically right. More, you know what I mean? Because you know what it's like. So if you leave sometimes ideas that are a little bit more simplistic, cool, but less complicated, leaves a lot more room for vocal melodies, for orchestration on the top, doesn't it, Shane?
Sure. Yeah.
To move about more, you know the way it is. If the guitar part's going like this, up and down and up and down, it's hard for the vocals to fit in there. So I didn't want to stress myself out. And so what happened was I came up with some guitar riffs, and I'm thinking, is this good enough? Should it be more, complex or whatever? But I just went with them, and the more I lived with them, and then when I started to put the vocals and melody lines on top, they work so well together. I'm really glad that I kept it, more straightforward underneath, and so using kind of those tricks of the trade and stuff like that, if all that makes sense.
It makes absolute sense. And, one of the genius things that I always loved about Priest, where even on a record like Rock-a-Roller, where the guitar sounds weren't necessarily really saturated, it was just always that heaviness. And I think I read somewhere where you were talking about the concept of light and shade, maybe, when writing and leaving space. I mean, maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely light and shade. We used to call it that years ago, from day one almost, really. But certainly in the early 70s, when we were putting albums together, because what happens is that I think it's fair to say it's hard to listen to the same intensity, for example, for a whole album. Like if you had 10 painkillers on a song, right, it would be hard to listen to.
Yeah, painkillers pretty heavy. Yeah.
You want to give the listener a bit of a break and take them on a journey. It's a bit of a roller coaster. And light and shade, I guess we talk about the intensity, so we need certain ingredients. We need the tempo changes. So we need, you could take the great classic albums of all time, if you have Deep Purple in rock, you've got Speaking, but you've got Child in Time, and you've got medium paced songs. So it's kind of a formula that we always kind of worked to, really. Mm-hmm. And it still works today. And I do believe that that's the case, mm-hmm. because when you bring it down, and it's like a live performance when you put a set list together, you take that into consideration as well. Right. Not to pound the listener, for 20 minutes non-stop. You have to pull and push. And like you say, we call it light and shade. So that is pretty important as well.
Hear that? Is that America cheering or a sausage patty sizzling to perfection? It's time to cheer for Egg McMuffin and fresh cracked eggs at McDonald's. It's time to wake up to the aroma of freshly baked biscuits and treat yourself to a real honest-to-goodness morning meal. Breakfast, it's on at McDonald's. Now enjoy a large iced coffee for just $2 and a breakfast sandwich to make a meal. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
You should be saving for the future, but savings accounts suck, and investing can be scary. We combine the ease of savings with the real returns of investing. We call it Save Vesting, and it's only available in our new app, Stairs. Stairs offers 4 to 6% returns, no fees, and you can withdraw anytime. Do your future a favor. Visit StairsApp.com today.
But going back to some of the basics as well, when you want to create some of those songs, like on Sermons of the Sinner, with songs like Brothers of the Road, Raise Your Fists, and Wild and Free, songs that are kind of comparable to other parking lot songs, I might want to call those, or call them driving songs, whatever you want to call them. Comparables like Living After Midnight, Breaking the Law, Hot Rockin', Head Out to the Highway, the Living After Midnight, whatever. Those type of songs, they're a very important ingredient in what I feel that I've always done and probably should always do, on a heavy metal album. So you got songs that are just like, yeah, we're gonna rock out, get to the parking lot, meet our mates, drink some beers. We're going to a concert tonight. That kind of up type of, feeling. The rebellious type of songs as well. I like to turn the clock back as well and go, I want to live those moments as well, And so, we're Hellraisers, Rule Breakers, even though I'm not now because I'm going to be 70 years old next month, I still like to think that I've got that ingredient inside me, whether I do it or not, do you know what I mean? But obviously, I adhere to songs like that because it takes me back, to a time when it did happen. And on top of that, you've got songs that are kind of more emotional, more sentiments, more meaning, on the album, like Return the Sentinel or, Metal Through and Through and Sermons of the Sinner, these messages, this rejoicement, this celebration, and these songs that are just, have more to say, and are more orchestrated,
Right, sure.
But I think that it has worked in the past, and I think it's a combination of ingredients that works really quite nicely on a kind of, archetypal, traditional heavy metal album. That worked for me, and it worked very well, in Judas Priest, on the albums that the fans seem to like the best,
It's a great record, KK. Congratulations again.
Thank you, mate.
I hate the word gear, but if you could talk about, I know in the early days, maybe that Reading festival where you guys, I know there was limited choices as far as effects pedals and things like fuzzes, but I think you used a treble booster. Is that correct?
Mm.
And was that pretty much it for like Rock-a-Rolla or the early albums?
Honestly, like I say, I've got a couple of those old ones here, but if you get like a 50-watt Marshall, you can be 100 watts. It's just very, very loud.
Yeah.
Because when you just plug the treble booster in to 100 watt, it will take your head off. But a 50-watt, what happened was, even with the treble booster, you couldn't get enough drive, on the amp, because what happens is, you drive the amp up on a 4x12 or 50-watt, right? But once you get up between 6 and 7, thereabouts, that's the optimum performance for that bit of kit. If you go past it, you don't get any more volume. You just get more compression, and it's unwanted. But the thing is, what happens is you got this guitar sound, and it's massive.
Mm.
And it does have a really great drive, and it'll be the best rhythm sound you ever heard in your life, But both myself and Glenn used that for years and years. But the thing is, when it came down to soloing, it didn't give us what we wanted to. You didn't have the drive for the sustain that you wanted to with the solos, So in the studios, we had to think again. I don't know I can't remember what Glenn did. But I know I had various bits of kit that were in the studio that would drive the front end a little bit more for the solos. Right. No, none of us had enough drive for solos in those. We were always looking. But the pedals that were coming out, we either didn't know how to use them properly. Well, we couldn't really, because like nowadays, you can use one of those pedals that came out, and you can use something like a power brake, and you can get them sounding great.
Right.
But we didn't have the power breaks back then in the early 70s, you know. So it was hard to make it work. And that's why if you get somebody like Ingve that will use a Dodd or a Ibanez tube screamer on the front end, he will have to crank it up so loud, you know. Obviously you get all these, you know, and but then if you start to put on noise suppressors and everything like that, it starts to shrink back.
Yeah, shrinks
and I can
back.
just imagine him thinking, no, I want to hear those extra frequencies. And he lives and performs with that, and all credit to him. I mean, he's a master of that, you know. But we needed, being two guitar players, we needed more control. You know, if you had all these erroneous noise coming out of Glenn, I would say, Glenn, it's too, you know, we need to pull it back a little bit, you know.
Did you and Glenn both get the Pete Cornish boards at the same time?
Yes.
It must have cost a fortune back then because they're still expensive.
Mate, honestly, I've got them. I've got some of them here, you know. I've got some of them, still some of them here, but we came into money, dare I say, enough money to buy a Pete Cornish because we thought there's only Pink Floyd and bands like that could afford those, you know. And one day we thought, we've got to up the ante here. We've got to get something, you know. We've got to get something. And that's another massive story in itself. The evolution of guitar processors and everything we know, because we were out there obviously pioneering all of this stuff, you know. And now it all gets condensed.
Right.
I think I must have been the first guitar player, or one of them, ever to have a guitar tuner on my pedal board. You know, because when that first chord, and I've got one here, the chord with the needle came out, I was able to put that on my pedal board and root through it. But the only problem was with it, the needle was red, and with the lights, you couldn't see the needle. So I took it apart and got an ink marker and made the needle black.
Wow, that's clever.
And put it all together. And then I was able to switch it off, silence it so I could tune on my pedal board. And of course, after a while, it all got integrated. But, you know, you remember these things because up until then, you only had like the strobe tuners and stuff like that. And of course, you couldn't stick
Peterson's the giant one, yeah.
Yeah, all of that, you know, which I never really got into, you know.
I actually never figured out how to use one of those. I've seen guitar techs.
You know, honestly, my eyes went wonky. I'm seeing all, I'm thinking.
It's like radar.
But we've got to know and understand this in this whole world. The tuner is just a guide. The rest you have to do yourself.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, my guitars now, my low E is 10 cents flat. My A is 10 cents flat. This is with me striking the note as light as I can possibly strike it, you know. So I'm 10 cents flat, 10 cents flat, 2.5 cents flat, 5 cents flat, 10 cents flat, and 15 cents flat.
Wow, that's really interesting. I've never heard of that before. Just to compensate for your right hand?
And it's wonderful.
Wow.
But then again, my strings are 8 through 38. So obviously that comes into play.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got to do it for yourself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So so a piece of advice to all the guitar players that go out there, young, don't expect to buy a guitar tuner. Tune to the tuner and expect your guitar to be tuned, you know, everywhere, because it won't be.
You still have some of your Hamers, KK?
Yeah, of course. Great guitars, you know. Had a great long relationship with the Hamer.
Probably Joel, right? Joel Danzig.
Yeah. Joel's a wonderful guy, very talented guy.
He's still building great guitars today.
Yeah.
I have a few Hamers too. I think they're really unsung guitars. They were
absolute quality, because the thing is, I went to the factory a lot of time, and the main staple of what they do was their purchasing of quality timbers, but also the great big racks they had where the timbers just lay there to age.
Right.
You know, and that's a big part of it. And that's what makes a touring guitar, isn't it? Because we as guitar players, experienced guitar players, we just pick up a guitar and we think that's a touring quality guitar or it's not.
Right.
No.
Right.
There's a big difference, mate, and we know that.
Sure.
We do know. A lot of the parts you can change, but the main of the headstock, the neck and the body, you can't change. You're stuck with it.
Right.
And you can kind of get a feel for it, can't you? That this will.
It feels it has a voice. It feels it's kind of alive. Yeah, it feels.
It's this will go around the world. It was, you know, and it's going to hold me in good stead.
Well, I don't want to keep you too much more. If I can ask you an oddball question, do you remember anything about the day you guys did? Priest did Top of the Pops, and Marie Osmond stormed into the dressing room about the Harley?
No, it wasn't the Harley. It was the bullwhip.
Oh, even better, bullwhip.
Yeah, because we did the rehearsal, the dress rehearsal, and Rob had his bullwhip, you know, on stage. I don't know what else, but we had some props. You know us, we would grab anything.
Yeah.
Just, you know, but Rob had the bullwhip, you know, and we used to actually sell the badges. And it said, "I've been whipped by Rob Halford." And we used to sell those at the gigs, and they were a big seller.
I'll bet.
They were. But anyway, so we did the dress rehearsal, and then the guy came in and said, "Look, you guys can't use the bullwhip, you know, because the Osmonds have said that they won't be performing if you use the bullwhip." And so we weren't very happy about that at all. We were not happy at all. I'm thinking, you do your show and we'll do ours. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, you know, I mean, okay, it's a family show, but what the hell, you know?
It's just
we're on the show. We're on the show. And so I can remember going into makeup, and Marie was in the chair next to me. She got the cucumbers on her eyes and everything, you know. And these are lovely people. I'm very talented people.
Right.
And Marie was very pretty. And I sat in the chair, and the lady went, "Oh, yeah, you're fine. You don't need anything doing." And I felt like I was on the tip of my tongue to say something to Marie right there and then. You know what I mean? Well, look, she got the towel and the cucumbers and everything, you know. But I thought, no, I'll bite my tongue, you know. But we did have a bit of a shout and that, and we did complain after the show, you know, as you do. But yeah, so but you know, we're all unscathed. We did the show. Rob didn't use the whip, but you know, I felt all the time we were doing the show that Rob would just pick something else up. I'm thinking he's going to do something. You know? Rob is going to do, because if he could have grabbed a fire extinguisher and let it off or anything, he would have done, you know, because, you know, I'm thinking something's going to kick off. But we got through it.
Oh, it's so great.
But
well,
yeah, it was the bullwhip.
All right, KK. Well, thank you. And congratulations on, you know, KK's Priest. I look forward to seeing you out there. Hopefully you can do some shows soon, and everybody check out the record.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
We're
Sermons
ready.
of the Sinner.
We're ready to kick some ass, honestly.
I'll bet.
Want to get out there and meet our audiences. It's like every band does, but as soon as we can get some shows, we're going to be out there. And yeah, it will happen. It's undeniable. It's unstoppable now. The machinery is in effect, and we need to go out and do what we do. Looking forward to it.
Great. Well, it's a great record.
And good luck with you, mate. And thank you very much. Yeah, and hope to see you out there on the road.
Thank you, KK. It's a real pleasure, man. Appreciate your time.
Speaking to you, mate, as well. Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Thank you, KK, for taking the time to chat with me. And thank you for listening. If you're still with us, check out Sermons of the Sinner, KK's Priest. See you next time on Riff Raff.
Is that Dunkin's new holiday blend coffee?
Sure is, because sometimes the holidays just call for Dunkin'.
What's in it? A spark of holiday spirit?
A cup full of holiday cheer?
Your very own holiday shopper?
Actually, all that, and notes of molasses and dried fruit. Just the warming blend I need for that holiday hustle.
Ah. Sit through the holidays with the $2 medium holiday blend coffee at Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply.